Good afternoon and good evening. From the YALI Network office in Washington, D.C., thank you for joining us for this first of a three-part series of business-focused webinars for entrepreneurs. These sessions are presented by the Office of the U.S. Speaker Program in partnership with the U.S. Embassy in Burundi. In fact, this series is a great example of how partnering with others can lead to great opportunities. The YALI Network would like to thank them for making this happen, and thank you to our presenter, Tonya McNeal-Weary. Before we get started, a few things. This webinar is being presented on two platforms. Some of you are joining us on Zoom, and others on Facebook. If you're on Zoom, there will be an opportunity to submit questions. On Facebook, please feel free to enter questions as comments on the page you are viewing the presentation. Our presenter will answer a few questions live at the end of the session, and we will do our best to respond to others in the comments. Thank you for joining us today. With that, I will pass it to Mission Bujumbura for their greetings and introduction of our speaker, Ms. McNeal-Weary.
Hi, greetings from Bujumbura. I'm Jean de Dieu Nkurunziza, and I'm glad to introduce the speaker for today, Tonya McNeal-Weary. She's a dynamic force in international trade and business consulting. As managing director of IBS Consulting Incorporated, she brings decades of experience in helping small businesses and middle-sized businesses achieve the international business goals. Learn more from Tonya about strategies in how to design comprehensive market entry roadmaps and executing targeted trade promotion. So with that, I leave it to Tonya. Tonya, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm introduction. It is such a pleasure to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I will go ahead and share my screen and get the slides up for you. Thank you for being here today. Thanks to everyone who made this event possible. So to the State Department, the Embassy, the YALI Network, for the invitations to speak with you today. It is such an honor. Thank you so much. I know you heard a little bit about me, but I want to share a little bit about my background. I have been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. Throughout my journey, I have started 3 companies, 2 for-profit, 1 nonprofit organization. I've also partnered with some of the most prestigious organizations around the world to serve as a mentor to startups and entrepreneurs globally. My journey has taken me to over 25 countries. I'm also honored to be a U.S. speaker with the U.S. Speaker Program with the U.S. State Department. This opportunity also allows me to come to you today and speak with entrepreneurs from around the world. I'm the author of a book called Women Going Global. I wrote this book during the pandemic. It's always been a passion of mine. And during the pandemic, I had a lot of time on my hands. So this was a great opportunity for me to finally write my book. It talks about my story, my journey as a female entrepreneur, as well as the journey of 13 other women from 13 different countries. Although we talk about the challenges in entrepreneurship, it's more about the possibilities and what is possible. And that's actually what we are going to talk about today. Today is all about possibilities. We're going to explore how you can build real partnerships with U.S. businesses, partnerships that create value for both sides. So what are we going to talk about today? Let's go through the journey. First, we'll explore why international partnerships matter and what the U.S. market offers. Then we're going to get to the practical stuff. How do you actually find and attract and engage with U.S. partners successfully? We'll dive into some different ways to enter the U.S. market. So this will provide you with some practical roadmaps. And then finally, you'll leave with a concrete 90-day action plan. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about why international partnerships matter. Let's start with some key statistics. US imports reach approximately $4 trillion annually. So think about that for a moment. $4 trillion annually in imports, the world's largest consumer market, and it's accessible to you. Studies have shown that businesses with international partners actually grow 3 to 4 times faster. So, why is this? It's because the market access, the credibility boost, knowledge transfer, and financial growth. So, let's talk about each of these quickly. Market access. The US gives you access to over 330 million consumers with high purchasing power. Knowledge transfer. You get to learn operational excellence, technology, and best practices that took your partners years and decades to learn. It's actually a credibility boost. US partnerships validates your business, not just globally, but everywhere around the world. I'm sorry, not just in the US, but everywhere around the world and globally. Financial growth, access to investment, and sustainable revenue streams. These are all the possibilities that you have when you partner with US partners here in the US. So, what do you want to do first? Let's talk about building your partnership equation. Your strengths, their needs. This equals a winning value proposition. It's simple, but yet powerful. So, first, you want to list your strengths. What do you do really well? Maybe you have unique products, your local knowledge. Maybe you have cost advantages, a cultural authenticity. So, what unique access or knowledge do you have? Then you want to research their needs. What problems are they trying to solve? And what gaps exist in their supply chain? The magic happens where these overlap, and that is your winning value proposition. So let's just take a look at these examples, a real world application, an agribusiness. So here is their strength. We provide traceable, single origin specialty coffee direct from farmers. That's the strength. So, what's the need they're fulfilling? Reducing your supply chain complexity while delivering authentic flavors to conscious consumers. So, notice they were very specific, traceable, single origin. They address this the pain point, supply chain complexity, and it appeals to conscious consumers, authenticity. So, let's take a look at the tech example. Our mobile payment solution serves 50 million unbanked users. That's the strength. That's their unique value proposition. What's the need? Offering US fintech companies proven technology for emerging markets. So, what do they have? Something that's quantifiable. It's quantified 50 million users, proven technology, local expertise, not just knowledge or tech transfer. So take a moment right now and think about your business. What's one strength you have? Think about that for one moment. Now I want you to think, what problem does that solve for a US company? That's going to be your starting point. So let's get to know a little bit about the US market and what US US buyers value. Quality and consistency. This is going to be key. This is a non negotiable. Americans expect the same quality every time. So you want to make sure you're consistent in delivering on quality. Reliability. You deliver on time every time. Robust supply chains are non negotiable. Innovation. What makes you different? What problem do you solve better than anyone else? Communication. This is really critical and often overlooked. You want to be responsive, clear, and proactive in your communication. So, what are some of the hot sectors? You'll see here agriculture and food products, textiles and apparel, technology and software, handicraft and artisan goods, tech innovation solving African problems equals global solutions. There is a growing demand for authentic, ethically sourced products as well. So you want to start by identifying your unique value proposition. What is different? What is better? And what is more authentic? So where do you find qualified partners? Where do we start? We have 3 channels that we're going to discuss. So the first, digital channels. This is really easy because of technology. Technology has opened up the world so much tremendously that now we're communicating and doing business with people all around the world through technology. So digital channels such as social media. LinkedIn is your best friend. There you can search decision makers, VPs of sourcing, purchasing directors, business development leads. You want to follow companies, engage with their content before reaching out. There's also trade platforms like Alibaba and Thomasnet, where you can also research and look for partners there, as well as industry marketplaces. Trade shows, events and programs is another channel for you to find qualified partners. Trade shows can be expensive considering travel costs, but are extremely valuable. I love the virtual, Zoom and being able to connect globally with people all around the world through this platform, but nothing beats that face-to-face interaction. That is how you build trust. So even though it can be a little costly, is extremely valuable if you can attend those events in person. However, if you can't attend in person, many trade shows now have virtual components. The AGOA forum is specifically Africa US trade. So you certainly want to look into that. Trade missions are another great way to visit the US, meet with potential partners, participate in B2B matching meetings, US trade shows. There's thousands of trade shows that's happening across the US on an annual basis, and you can research these trade shows by industry sector. The YALI Network and embassy connections, that's a great starting point because you're already connected. There's also government resources. We don't want to overlook those. The US Commercial Service is great for market research. We have Exim Bank programs and local trade promotion agencies. These people are on the ground and their jobs are to connect businesses. You don't have to go at this alone. So certainly you want to take advantage of all the resources that's available to you. So let's talk about some of the selection criteria when you're looking for the right partner, because a business partner, that's like a marriage. So you want to make sure you partner with the right person, and not all partners are good partners. So what you want to look for is alignment. You want to make sure that there's values alignment past just the money, not just looking at financial alignment. You want to make sure that there's complementary capabilities. They fill your gaps, you fill their gaps. You want to make sure that they are financially stable. Can they commit to resources? And you also want to make sure that they have a great track record. So you want to do your due diligence and make sure that they have a successful track record. And have they done business with international partners before? This is going to be key. So here is a simple outreach email that you can use. Even though it's simple, I have seen this used successfully many times. So we're going to start with a hook. Reference something specific about them. So this is when you're doing your initial outreach to potential partners. This is your initial email outreach. You want to start with a hook. Reference something specific about them. Show that you have done your research. So for example, I noticed your company is expanding into sustainable sourcing. Then you want to follow up with credibility, right? You want to prove that you can help. So one line about your track record: we supply 50 retailers across East Africa, or our technology serves 100,000 users. That's your credibility. Then your value, what's in it for them? Remember, it's not about you, it's what's in it for them. One clear benefit, not a list, just one clear benefit. And then call to action. Make it easy. Could we schedule a 15-minute call next week? So this is just a simple tool, email outreach that you could use. What not to do, you don't want to send generic dear sir, dear madam emails. You want to be specific in addressing the contact person directly. So dear Mr. John Smith, for example. You don't want to provide a long company history and you don't want to ask for money up front. This is just the original, the initial outreach, just to see if there's interest, to see if how they respond back. And you don't want to send multiple attachments in this initial email. If you want to provide a link to something specific, to a product, that's fine to do that. So here is a simple follow-up strategy. So this is your initial email, initial outreach. Day 5, you can do a follow-up, provide maybe some new insight. No ask. We're still not asking for anything just yet. On the 14th day, if you have not received a response, you want to change your angle or close the loop. What do you want to do? You want to pivot? So that's where you make that decision. So building trust across cultures. Let's be honest, there are cultural differences, not better, not worse, just different. So understanding them, this is your competitive advantage. So let's talk about the US business culture. Communication, this is really critical. Americans are direct. They mean what they say. If they say no, it's not rude, it's just they're being clear, they're being direct. Also, they're time conscious, right? Time is money. So you want to respond promptly within 24 hours. Decisions, this is really key. Show me the data, show me the ROI. Relationships matter, but numbers matter more. Task first approach. In many African cultures, we build relationships first and then business. However, Americans often do business first. The relationship develops through successful work. So, those are some key things to keep in mind. So, how do you bridge these strategies, right? You want to be proactive, anticipate their needs, don't wait. Send weekly updates, even when there's nothing major to report. This is really critical. You don't want to go cold. Don't want to go silent. So be proactive in your communication and sending updates. You want to document everything from email confirmations, written agreements, meeting notes, and set up systems to ensure a fast response within 24 hours. That's usually the rule. Show reliability. This is how you build trust in US business culture, is consistent delivery. So here's just a brief timeline. So months 1 through 3, this is where you want to prove reliability. You want to deliver on a small promise. Months 4 through 6, show ROI and consistency. And then from month 7 on, move to long-term agreements. This is where you're deepening this partnership. So a key insight, a key takeaway right here. In US business, trust is earned through actions, not just relationships. We have the saying, actions speaks louder than words. So now, what are some strategies for entering the US? This is your how. How do you actually enter the US? There are 3 main approaches. Each has pros and cons. And so let's talk about those. So there's the direct export path that you can take. This is best if you have an established product, proven demand, and resources to invest. So, what are some of the pros? You have full control, higher margins, and direct customer relationship. What are the cons? It's a higher risk, complex logistics. You handle everything on your own. So let's talk about another path. Distributors. This is best if you want to scale quickly with limited resources. So what are the pros? Faster entry to market, lower cost. Your partner, your distributor, they know the market. They have access to your target customers already. What are the cons? You have less control, lower margins, and your success is dependent on their performance. Most successful companies start with distributors. They prove the model first, then transition to direct export as they grow. You can use multiple strategies for different product lines. It's totally your choice. And there's another path that we're going to talk about, and that's the joint venture path. Now, this is best for a long-term commitment. So if you're willing to invest long-term in the US and your partnership, this would be a good path to take. There's significant investment and you'll need local expertise. So if you need local expertise, you require a significant investment amount and you're willing to make that long-term investment, this would be a great path for you to take. So the pros is that there's shared risk. You're not doing everything by yourself as the direct export. There's there's local knowledge. So you have access to local knowledge and a stronger brand position. So what are some of the cons? Shared profits, complex agreements, and this requires that you absolutely choose a compatible partner. JVs are not for everyone. They only make sense, again, if you need significant capital. The market requires a local presence, such as manufacturing, service delivery, technology, or IP sharing creates mutual value or a long-term commitment to market. So here are some critical success factors that you want to take into consideration. And we're going to talk about this company, Flutterwave. They're a Nigerian fintech company. They have headquarters here in San Francisco. So what was the strategy? They solved a real problem, payment friction. So African businesses couldn't easily accept payments from US customers, and US fintech companies couldn't easily serve African markets. So they proved the model first. They didn't go to the US on day one. They built traction in Africa, 50 million users, then approached US partners with proof. They developed strategic partnerships with Stripe and Visa. These are established players who helped open many doors. This followed with US VC investment and also them opening their physical presence in San Francisco, which showed their long-term commitment. So the success factor here, they positioned as a bridge, not just an African company wanting US market access. They solve problems for both sides. So taking a look at your innovation, your product, does it solve a problem for both sides? So what's the key takeaway? You want to build credibility first at home. Then leverage that success. Don't just go to US partners with an idea. You want to go with proof. So as this company did, they built the traction first. They came with, okay, we have 50 million users across African countries. So you want to come with some real proof. So here is a JV success checklist that I want to go through because this is really important. If this is the path that you want to take, you want to make sure that you have clear written agreements, never handshake on JV deals, never. You want to make sure that your goals are aligned. Different visions can absolutely destroy partnerships, and we don't want that. You want to make sure that you have defined roles and a clear exit strategy. So who decides what and how do we separate if needed? Again, just like a marriage, right? If it doesn't work out, how do we separate? Who owns what? It's the same concept. You want to always use legal counsel because JV agreements are very complex. And again, never forget, transparent communication. So set up regular meetings and make sure that you're doing regular reporting. Some key components to look for in your agreement: ownership, who owns what are the financial terms, management, and IP technology. Okay, so let's talk about our 6-step export roadmap. If you choose direct export, here's your step-by-step roadmap. This is a reality check, but it's doable. The first thing you want to do, you want to be honest with yourself. You want to check your readiness, right? Are you really ready? Product quality, capacity, finances, your team. These are all critical things for you to assess. That's the first step. Second, compliance, regulatory compliance. This is where many fail. So you want to make sure for, FDA, for food cosmetics, safety certifications, customs, all of these things, you want to make sure that you are in compliance with your product or service, okay? And get help. Again, this can be a lot. I know it's a lot of information that we're going through, but there is help, and we're going to talk about that at the end. So you don't have to go at this alone. Number 3 is pricing. Calculate everything. This is also where a lot of businesses make the mistake as well, not including all costs. You have to account for everything. So product, shipping, duties, insurance, margin, and then buffer for currency fluctuations. Logistics. Air is fast, but it's expensive. Sea is cheap, but it's slow. So you want to choose based on your product and your margins. So when we talk about payment, letters of credit are the safest, especially for first transactions. You want to build trust before extending credit terms. So for those who may not know, a letter of credit is a bank's promise to pay a seller on behalf of a buyer. This guarantees payment once the seller provides documents, providing they have met agreed upon conditions. This is the safest route to go, especially as you're building these relationships, and you want to build trust first before extending lines of extending credit. Marketing. You want to make sure you have professional marketing materials. This is absolutely non-negotiable as well. So when you take a look at your website, your digital campaigns, you want to make sure that they are professional. So what's the reality in terms of timeline? 6 to 12 months from start to first shipment. So you want to plan accordingly. So here are some common pitfalls for you to avoid, and these are really critical. So I'm going to kind of slow down a little bit to make sure that we cover them all. Rushing due diligence. This is really key. I know we can get excited. Someone offers you a great deal. You're excited. You're quick to sign. Then after signing, you discover they're not financially stable. Well, at this time, it's too late. You've already signed the contract. So never rush on due diligence. Really take the time to verify their finances, their sales history. Do some checking and really find out if they can deliver on what they say they can. Here in the US, we have the Better Business Bureau. You can also check references there, find out if there's been any complaints filed. But this is an area you don't want to rush. Another one is vague agreements. That's those handshake deals. This can lead to many disputes. A handshake and good intentions, then 6 months later, you disagree about who owns what. This can be a total disaster. So you want to document everything, right? And never overpromise. This is another key. You want to underpromise, overdeliver. So if you commit to 10,000 units by March, but you can only deliver 5,000, now the trust is destroyed forever. So you want to underpromise, overdeliver. Be very realistic with what you can deliver on. And if you can't, it's okay. It's best to start off with building that relationship on trust and transparency. Another one is poor communication. You go silent when there's a problem. This is one of the issues that a lot of businesses have because they don't want to report bad news. They don't want to say when there is problems going on within the company or shipment or something's going wrong. No, you absolutely want to talk about these things, not hide bad news. This is how you can quickly kill a relationship. Going silent when there is a problem. They assume the absolute worst, and then the relationship is dead. The other is ignoring culture. Again, there's cultural differences, not good, not bad, just different. You interpret their directness as rudeness, they interpret your politeness as unclear. That causes the friction. So there's where the adaptability comes in and where you need to be able to adapt to those cultural differences. So the bottom line, start small, pilot projects first, prove it works, then scale. Always have exit clauses in your agreement. Here's a key principle I want you to take away today. Prevention is easier than resolution. So I'm going to say that again. Prevention is easier than resolution. So invest time in setting up the partnership correctly from the start. Okay, so I know we've covered a lot in this short time, but let's make it concrete. Here's your 90-day action plan. This is what you do when you leave today. So first, you want to define your value proposition. You want to assess your readiness. Are you really ready? Do you have the capabilities? Do you have the resources, right? So these are the things you want to think about first. Research your targets and update your LinkedIn if needed. Attend virtual events to start. These, again, you can find a lot of virtual events going on around the US through various different websites. You want to send 20 targeted emails. Connect with 10 to 15 people. Then in month 3, schedule discovery calls, present your pilot proposal, and negotiate your first agreement. So here's something you can actually do within the next 90 days. Prepare, connect, and build. Here are some daily success habits. Because success is a daily discipline. So let's be honest. You can spend 30 minutes each day just conducting research, 1 hour relationship building, 15 minutes on your follow ups, and 30 minutes learning. There's always something new to learn in international business and international trade. So make sure that you are continuously learning. Again, there are numerous resources to help you. Another suggestion that I have that I mentioned with companies that I've worked with is finding an accountability partner. This is someone you can check in with on a weekly basis or every other week or once a month or twice a month, whatever you decide. This person can hold you accountable. Hey, did you do that research? Hey, did you attend an event? So this person holds you accountable. And you can also be their accountability partner too. It works both ways. And trust me, you'll go a lot further together, right? If you want to go fast, you know what they say. They say go by yourself. If you want to go far, then you go together. So find an accountability partner that you can work with and you can, cheer each other on and make sure that you're on track and meeting your goals and your objectives that you set out. So now what are some of these resources that can help you? You don't have to figure this out by yourself. So let's go through what's available. Agoa.info. This is a great website. I was just on it a couple of days ago. A lot of great information. So certainly you want to check that out. Trade.gov. This is the US Commercial Service website. They have tons of market research, various different industries. You can find a lot of information there. ITC is the International Trade Center. They have a trade map. So this is very interesting. So I certainly encourage you to take a look at that website. I have listed it there, trademap.org, and play around with that. In terms of financing, the US Exim Bank is a great resource. We also have the African Development Bank, and we have the Tony. I'm going to butcher his name, but we have a foundation that's also a great resource for you, and Prosper Africa, which is a wonderful organization. YALI Network, certainly you're already connected, so use it. They have regional leadership centers that you can access. You want to, they can connect you with potential mentors and advisors. So this is a network that you are already part of. So you certainly want to leverage this. We have African Chambers of Commerce across the United States, and there are numerous LinkedIn groups you can join by the group's industry focus, or if they are, US businesses. So there's just many different options. If you go to LinkedIn and search for groups, you'll see many things come up. In terms of learning, again, this is ever, the learning doesn't stop here today with this brief seminar. So you want to make sure that you are continuously learning, developing new knowledge and skills for your success. They have Export University. Again, this is through the International Trade Center. Coursera has some free courses, low cost and free courses, I believe. And the Harvard Business Review, I have used them quite a bit. A lot of great case studies that you can find there, a lot of other great information. So I certainly recommend that you check that out as well. So I know we've covered a lot, but here's what I want you to remember, and here's what I want you to take away. Entrepreneurs like you are building successful businesses in the US every single day. You have unique value to offer. You just need to identify it and articulate it and share it with confidence. International partnerships are not magic, so it's not going to magically happen. They're relationships that's built on mutual trust and value. And sometimes it takes time to really build that. So this is where your patience is going to be very valuable in building these relationships and making sure that you're not rushing the process, because you want to make sure that you do identify the right partner. You do want to make sure that your goals are aligned and that they can deliver what they say they can. And you want to make sure that you can bring them value as well. A partnership is not a one way. It's both ways. It's two people who are benefiting from a shared mission. So you want to make sure that that's there. So start small, prove it works, and then scale from there. The resources exist, the market is there. The only question is, will you take action? That's the question I'm going to leave you with today. So thank you for your time. Reach out if you have any questions, you want to connect. All of my social media links are here. So LinkedIn, I am the most active. You can certainly find me there. Facebook and Instagram, not as much, but I'm there. So certainly connect with whichever platform works for you. Happy to open this up and make this more as an engaging conversation, and to have time for some questions.
Thanks, Tonya. That was a great presentation, and I know that our attendees, both on Facebook and Zoom, have gotten a lot of great information from you. So we have questions that have been submitted to the Q&A on Zoom as well as on Facebook. So getting started, let me go to let's go to a question that we received on Zoom. It talks about the conditions for business. So we often talk about AI as Africa's leapfrog opportunity, but on the ground, there's still struggle with infrastructure. As Africa positions itself in international trade, AI is increasingly shaping supply chains, trade finance, and market access. Given that many African countries still face infrastructure gaps, digital, energy, and logistics, how can people adopt AI in a way that strengthens its trade competitiveness without deepening existing inequalities?
That's a really good question. I would think certainly if there are some challenges on the ground in their home country, certainly that's where those partnerships can be very, very valuable as well, because they can help open up some of these opportunities and some of these gaps, because maybe that challenge or that issue does not exist here. And so maybe that's where they can bridge that gap, certainly with the US partner, and leveraging their technology resources, their infrastructure in AI. So that would be my answer.
Great. And thinking about the different types of businesses that people have, some have a product-based business or a commodity-based business, but some people have service-based businesses. So this is a question that came in from Facebook. Thank you, Tonya, for the wonderful insights. My question is, if service-based companies also have the opportunity for partnership with the U.S., especially in the areas of building capacity for small business owners and exposing them to digital tools and help access global markets.
Absolutely, yes. So my company is a service-based business, so I can speak from, my, personal experience in my company. And my company is built on partnership and collaboration, right? And so we have over 30 partners, not just in the US, but globally. So absolutely, this opportunity exists for service-based businesses. How I built my company was through partnerships. So, my company, IBS Global Consulting, we work with businesses and helping companies successfully expand into new markets overseas, where we're not an expert in all markets, right? We can't, tell you, how the market is in Europe and Asia, so we partner with companies on the ground who can. So that is how we actually built our company. A lot of these connections came from LinkedIn, networking using the platform, as well as going to various different trade events and connecting with complementary service providers. So that's the thing too. You want to find someone who offers complementary services to what you offer and partner together. And it's a win-win for both sides. I can speak to that personally, as that's how I've built my company. And now we're working in 5 continents. 4 continents across the world, and working with some amazing partners who we can leverage their on the ground knowledge and expertise. And it helps our clients that we're working with enter into these markets a lot faster, because we don't have to do all the learning. So, yes, absolutely.
That's great. Here's a very basic one, but I think something that can help a lot of people, and that is, what are the biggest mistakes you see early stage African entrepreneurs, and I would expand this to all entrepreneurs, make when trying to enter international markets, and how can they avoid these mistakes?
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about this all the time when I go and I speak at various different events. The one thing that I say, here's the biggest mistake here. And I like to use this analogy because I travel and I fly all around the world. So you pack your business model up in your suitcase, you get on the plane, you arrive in a new country, you unpack it and think it's going to magically work the exact same as in your home country. It does not. You have to adapt for each market. Each market is different, unique, has different needs. The problem that you're solving at home with your product may actually solve a different problem in another market. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see companies make. They think that they can have the same business model in every market, and they don't adapt for the differences. So the way to avoid that is really to research and get to understand the market and understand what the needs are, and make sure that you adapt your product or service to that local market. And each market is different. Even here in the US, sometimes we're looked at as one big market, but we're 50 states, right? So there's like 50 individual markets that you're looking at when you're looking to come to the United States, and they're all different. No state is created equal, right? And so you want to just take the time to research and understand those cultural differences, and adapt your business model accordingly.
That's great. That really talks to about how research and things in the planning stages can really help an entrepreneur with their business. Um, Continuing on with that planning stage and research phase, how can young entrepreneurs leverage regional trade agreements like AFCFTA to compete globally, even with limited capital?
Yeah, certainly. There are various ways and strategies to leverage these regional agreements. Um, I have not personally worked with companies that were utilizing that strategy. But I'm certain that there are resources on the ground, the embassy, the local trade offices that can certainly tell them the best way, because it may look different for each company depending on the product, the market. So it can be very different. It can look very different. So certainly tapping into your local resources, your local experts, and finding what's the best solution and the best path for you to get the maximum return.
That's great. Let's switch gears a little bit into someone has a company that produces a product. So this question came in from Facebook. I manufacture biodegradable sanitary pads, but face challenges in accessing international markets and managing overseas shipping and connecting with potential clients. What strategic, logistical, and market entry solutions can enable effective global distribution?
Partnership. That would solve all of those problems, your access to market. All of those problems can be solved through a local partner. And I'm sorry, what was the product again? It was a
So the product is biodegradable sanitary pads. So I imagine there are some regulatory
FD.
considerations as well.
Okay. Do they, so yeah, a lot, I would have a lot of questions in terms of, certifications and regulations that they would need to, that would be number one. But certainly outside of those certifications and meeting the regulatory requirements, just having the access to the consumer base, the marketing, all of that can certainly, that would be the benefit of your partnership with the US partner.
That's great. Yeah. So then, in order to look for those U.S. partners, these entrepreneurs would go back to the trade organizations and the other resources that you mentioned earlier, correct?
Yes, the trade resources, a great one. Like I said, for some entrepreneurs, depending on their financial capacity, they may not have the financial resources to travel all around the US and attend these events. But what I've noticed is that a lot of these major trade events also have a virtual component. So now they're hybrid events where you could still participate in a virtual capacity. You can still use the chat to network. I've actually participated in some of these events, and they have the side where people are networking and they're talking about their products and what they're looking for. So it's still a great component. And then they have breakout rooms where you can also, so it kind of gives you that in-person but virtual the benefit of the virtual component of it without being there in person. So certainly being in person is the best choice, because the face to face, nothing beats the face to face. But if there's financial constraints, certainly the next step is the virtual events. There are various different websites where they can find a list of these. If they connect with me on social media and say, "Hey, what's a website where I can find?" I have some sites that's actually saved in my computer, and I can just shoot it over to them. And it lists all of the trade events in the US by sector and what time of the year these events happen on an annual basis. So happy to share that. If anyone wants that, just shoot me a message through social media.
That's great. Thanks, Tanya. I think that also addresses one of the other questions that we got from someone who has a registered company in Nigeria, and they've been working with a U.S. company as a business associate or maybe some sort of consultant. But they were asking about what does a U.S. company need to do to help global partnership official? So that seems to probably fall in the realm of, well, it depends. But what do you think about that? What makes a business partnership official?
Well, here in the US, I would certainly say a written agreement. In some cultures, the handshake is enough for that formal agreement. But here in the US, I would not recommend a handshake agreement. I recommend having it on paper, a written agreement. So whether it's a distribution agreement, it's a JV agreement, it's a strategic alliance, whatever the terms of that partnership is, I would say to have that in writing and have it signed. This will help avoid any legal, issues or misunderstandings going forward. Some cultures do the handshake. I would not recommend a handshake deal.
That's important to remember. Yeah, absolutely. How about one that where we talk about access to capital? We got in a couple of questions about people who want to set up a business. Maybe they have a great idea and they think that they've
Mhm.
got a great market, whether that's an individual business or a business that specifically exists to help vulnerable people, but they don't have the available means. Talk about the
Mhm.
steps when building a business, how to raise capital, even to get to that minimum viable product.
Yeah, that's one of the key challenges for many entrepreneurs, as you know. Number one, access to capital. There is the US is really known and very large when it comes to um, angel investments. And so a lot of capital here, a lot of investments here, but it's also a lot of competition. A lot of international companies are coming in after those investors, right? So what you want to do is make sure you have a solid product. Some of the things we talked about, having a solid product, come with a proven, something that you can say, okay, this is already working at home. Now I want to bring this here to the US, not just coming with an idea and say, hey, I want to raise $2 million because I've been thinking about this, but really showing that your idea is solving a real problem and you've already proven that in your home country. And then presenting that to potential investors here in the US. A lot of investment opportunities here. I did another talk and I don't have these numbers, but I believe it was something to the tune of over 50% of US investments um, are investing in global companies because they like the innovation. They like the diversity. So they are really attracted to foreign companies coming in with really great ideas and innovation. And so there's opportunities. You just have to present yourself and prepare yourself because, again, the competition is also big. So making sure you have a viable product, making sure that that product has been proven already at home, and that you have unique value to bring. That's what investors are going to be looking for.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of questions from people that are beginners, and I think that
Mhm,
this
mhm.
is really important to recognize because there are always times where when somebody starts a business or you have an idea that you see a goal, but getting to achieve that goal is very challenging. So here's a question from somebody in the Zoom. As a beginner, it's very challenging to achieve our goal of setting a venture or creating a company. What should be the mindset and their character to help make it real?
Yeah. First thing is believing in yourself and believing that it's possible. That's number one. Believe in yourself, believe that it's possible. Again, entrepreneurs are doing this every day, even through all the challenges and, the lack of access to the capital and markets and the networks, but they're doing it. They're overcoming that. What I would recommend is networking, right? That's you getting together with other people who are like you, experiencing the same challenges, and you guys figure out a way to help each other. Going in it solo, I don't recommend that. You don't have to do that because there's other young entrepreneurs who are just starting out just like you. Connect with those other entrepreneurs and sit, what now we can do virtual meetups, right? Schedule some virtual coffee chats, talk about these challenges, and together come up with some solutions. But it is certainly doable. It's certainly about mindset. It's about the way that you think. It's about having that level of confidence in yourself and knowing that you can achieve it. Other people before you have, even through the challenges, they still overcame those. So you need to be resilient, right? You need to be resilient. It's not about being fearless. A lot of people talk about fearless. It's not about being fearless. It's about you doing it regardless of the fear. That's how I actually got into my work that I'm doing. Yeah, I was scared as heck, right? But I did it anyway. It's overcoming the fears. It's not about being fearless. You can be scared and still go for it and take the risk, take calculated risk, believe in yourself, and know that you can do anything.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a great place to end on an inspirational note. But how about just one more question, one last question,
Sure.
and this is distilled from questions that we've received on Facebook as well as on Zoom, and it's really, what is your number one go-to piece of advice when starting a business that wants to expand internationally? what what is the number one thing that you tell new entrepreneurs or established entrepreneurs with a new venture, um, about getting into markets beyond your local market?
So here's the advice, and I like to be, totally honest with the advice I give. So I've got to say this. When you're looking at new markets, it's challenging. I'm not going, this is the business that I work in. I've been doing this for over 16 years with IBS Global Consultant. It's not easy. It's not easy understanding another country's culture, regulatory environment. How do consumers buy? What do they want? What do they need? These are all the questions that these entrepreneurs must ask themselves when they're going into these markets. Will my product actually fulfill a need? And sometimes maybe it will, sometimes maybe it won't. Don't be afraid to make the pivot if it does not fit. Don't force the fit, right? So there's numerous markets around the world. You may think, oh, this is a beautiful place and I want to go and I want to do business there, but maybe that's not the perfect fit. Don't be afraid to make that pivot if it does not work. Don't force the fit. You'll end up spending more money, more time, and not be successful because you tried to force something because it sounded good. Sounded good when I was dreaming about it, right? But the reality of it is a lot of the international expansion plans, they fail, and it's because of lack of research, companies not knowing when and how to pivot when needed. So this is what I say. Certainly you want to go out, you want to test these markets. The easiest way to test the market and the least expensive way is through a trade show. So if you want to come to the US, attend one of the trade shows, have an exhibit booth. This way you can get the feedback from potential consumers. They're testing your product, they're testing out the service, and you get this direct feedback. You can take this feedback and see what changes you need to make. How do you need to adapt this to fit what their needs are? So yeah, definitely test the market. Don't be afraid of failure. So I always say fail fast, right? Fail fast so you can move on, pivot to the next. So that would be my advice, just to being honest. Everything's not going to be perfect in international expansion. As I say, nothing in life is perfect. International expansion is not exempt from that. So just go for it, but know when to pivot and also know when to get help. Don't go at it by yourself.
Thanks, Tonya.
Thank
This has
you.
been great. And I think that's an excellent place to end. I want to thank you, our presenter, Tonya McNeal-Weary. I encourage everybody online to reach out if you have any questions, on her socials, on LinkedIn, and really use the tools available to make these international connections. Um, we would also like to thank the U.S. Embassy in Burundi and all of our partners there who helped make this presentation happen. Especially thank you to the U.S. Speakers Program Office in Washington, and Jeanette and Jamie there, for making this presentation happen. I will leave it there. Thank you to all of our attendees. Without you, none of this really happens. Please, if you haven't joined the YALI Network, head to www.yali.state.gov or just yali.state.gov and sign up for the YALI Network and get clued into to sessions like this. We really appreciate you being here, and thank you. Have a good evening. Have a great day.